So I'm going to talk about my deck list I used for the World Championship 2025 qualifiers. If you want to see the ranking, top 2,200, 136 in the region. I don't think this is particularly impressive. I used the same deck list to get to Master 1 this season. So you can see how it looks there, and we'll just talk about it in here because it's the same difference. So, Blue Eyes Primate, this is infinitely the far better version of the Blue Eyes deck. There are a number of reasons of this, but I want to talk about the most important one, to me personally at least, which is the following. The Blue Eyes Primate deck, specifically, doesn't auto-lose to maxx, and it doesn't auto-lose to Ash, like both of them. If you'll look at this deck list, you'll note something, which is I have cut Called by the Grave, because I think Called by the Grave is a win more card for going first in this deck list, as opposed to a card that stops you from losing against a specific hand trap. In my experience, you are much more likely to be okay if you get hand trapped on wishes in this version of the deck, or to be able to skip a wishes in order to directly go to Roar or Majesty if your hand is strong and you don't want to discard any of the cards from it. That's something very relevant for this version that I don't think comes up as much in the traditional version. So I would advise you keep that in mind about what the deck is good for and can do. So once again, of course, we're playing two Blue Eyes. It's basically the minimal number of Blue Eyes you want to be playing to be able to do your combos and still have a Blue Eyes in reserve. I would remind you to hold on to Roar for as long as possible in the event of getting Bestialed, so you can bring Blue Eyes back with Roar. I think that can be relevant to keeping Blue Eyes White Dragons in rotation that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. For Engine, obviously, Sage is at 2, Maiden is at 2, so we're playing 2 of each. I would honestly consider cutting Wishes for Eyes as blue if these were at 3. I'm not sure. I honestly kind of want to be playing 40 cards in this deck list, but it felt like cutting anything would be a little bit of a bad decision. So I didn't, so I'm playing everything. And then for the rest of Engine, we're playing 1 Neo-Kaiser Seahorse. Neo-Kaiser Seahorse at 1 is important because when you open just your Primate cards, that's strong in the long run, but it's not quite enough. And you're going to make seals off of it normally, depending on what your opponent does. Sometimes they'll maxx you, and you have to give them 1 draw off of Lordly Load to make your Drill Beam live. And so you'll kind of have to do that. And then in that scenario, obviously you're not going to make seals, but in a lot of scenarios you will make seals, and you might have a Primate in hand so that your Drill Beam is live anyways, or you'll have True Light to be able to bring back Blue Eyes so that the Drill Beam will be live anyways, so that your Heretic Seals will end up summoning Neo-Kaiser, which will obviously go into Spirit, which will put your Maiden of White in Graveyard with the Kaiser's effect, which will put you in your main Blue Eyes engine. That is the main thing we want to do here with the Neo-Kaiser. And it is also a starter / extender. It summons itself from hand, which is not irrelevant. And I think it's just a solid card at 1 that you go into off of Heretic Seals to go into your main Blue Eyes combo. Also, if you started with your mainline Blue Eyes combo and you made a Seals, you can also do the same thing going into Ether Barrel, especially if you have a Nibiru, tribute your own board, including an Ether Barrel, and then you get to get that Ether Barrel back at the beginning of the next turn and start your Primate stuff. Very powerful. Just a strong loop that connects the two with Heretics Seals. This card is kind of crazy. Then for the rest of the engine, we're playing Wishes. I think you could consider playing a Bingo Machine Go for another target. I had games where I would draw both a Majesty and a Roar, and I had to search the continuous, or where I had it later in the game and I just couldn't activate it. I think you could consider playing like one Bingo Machine Go or something like that, but not super sold on it. And I don't like playing into Droll, and currently the deck is like fine into Droll with most hands, if you specifically think about it and play around it. Obviously Roar is just special summon a Blue Eyes. I've had awkward hands where Roar was the only thing approximating a starter, and you just kind of awkwardly summon Blue Eyes, and I'm like, boy, I hope my hand traps are enough to keep me in this game. Mausoleums, whatever. Lordly Load I like, because you can like activate this and kind of force your opponent to Ash if you have like a Wishes in hand. Sometimes you'll just draw multiple Primite cards, and they'll hand trap one of them, and you activate the other one, and then if I was the opponent, I'd kind of want to rage quit at that point, because like seriously, you normal summon a Primite, Dragon Ether Barrel, and then you activated Lordly Load after I impermed the Ether Barrel, and now you get to search your Mausoleum of White. There are a lot of like feels bad moments for your opponents with this deck. Especially when you have access to like Maiden of White. Getting Ash when you're playing this deck and you haven't used Wishes yet feels so powerful. Guaranteeing that like Wishes resolves is really good. I mean, sometimes they have Ash Purge, but that's very rare. I play one Drill Beam. I think you can play two, but my goal was making sure I'd survive combo decks going first, which is why I'm playing so many hand traps. It's why I cut Called by the Grave in order to fit more hand traps, because I'm not too worried about what happens when I go first and my opponent hand traps me. Like I said, I don't think Ash kills us. Frequently, there's a card I'm like happy to discard. Usually, by the way, if I drew Mausoleum of White, I would just discard it for Wishes. Like, I'd be like, okay, I drew it, whatever. Get rid of it. I don't like that card. Ideal? No, but like, it'll happen. It's fine. I think playing 2 Drill Beam is arguable. I think when, like, you're expecting to go against, like, Snake Eyes and stuff, I would tend to not lean towards that. But that's me. I'm not surprised for playing people who do. I just feel like this kind of hand trap ratio made me feel a lot more comfortable, A, going second, and B, not playing Called By, because it's like, okay, normal summon Ether Barrel, get Max Seed, Lordly Load. I had a bunch of hands, by the way, where I just would do a bunch of special summons that wouldn't start a chain. And, like, I'd be able to get, like, Ether Barrel into Sage with Eyes of Blue when I had a Max C in hand. And I would be able to get, like, 2 searches off. And, like, sometimes you'll activate the effect of Spirit with Eyes of Blue to summon a Blue Eyes from Graveyard to chain Max C. And then you, like, use True Light to special summon the Blue Eyes so that they don't even get a draw off of it. There are a lot of scenarios where you just kind of make your opponent's Max C really bad, or you can basically ignore it, with specifically this deck. Neo Kaiser's the only starter that's, like, really awkward in a Max C, because all of the rest of them play around it pretty well. I don't think there's too much else to talk about. The rest is non-engine. For non-engine, I'm playing 3 Veiler, 3 Ogre, 3 Ash, Imperm, Purge, Nibiru, Max C, which I believe is 20. That sounds correct. Basically, I think a lot of decks have a bit of consistency that's good hit. Blue Eyes in particular, usually hitting their Wishes for Eyes of Blue is just really strong. Like I said, in my experience, when I'm playing this much non-engine, my Wishes for Eyes of Blue getting ashed usually was not an issue, or I'd like use Primate Lordly Load to like really encourage my opponent to ash me. Sometimes I'd hold it, and I'd use like the second effect of Lordly Load while holding Wishes for Eyes of Blue in hand, because if they ash the second effect of Lordly Load, I'm in the clear from Ash, and if they don't, it's still, like, fine, even though I can't activate the special summoned monsters effects. Well, obviously, it depends. And we go to the extra deck. I'm only playing one Neo Blue Eyes and one Tyrant here. Sometimes I'll make it going first, sometimes I won't. It entirely depends on the scenario and what's happening, what I have in my graveyard, what prep I'll have. I'm playing Moonlight Dragon still. I like it for the bounce. It comes up sometimes. 3 Spirit Dragon. Light Swarm just to pop spell traps. This tends to be good against like really annoying back row decks. Unfortunately, like Kashtira tends to be the biggest one, and they tend to play a bunch of like banish spell traps, which is just really obnoxious. However, you know, that's just how the game is. Baron tends to be on follow-up turns. I don't really remember using this time. However, the Cipher Crimson Dragon and the Spirit, Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit, definitely use that. Typhon came up a couple of times. Being able to bounce and attack is a big deal. Sometimes it's a little annoying, but usually your opponent ends up clearing it for you anyway, so it's whatever. And then 2 Spirit with Eyes of Blue. You need 2 just for the follow-up. I can see playing 3 because of Primite Ether Barrel, but I don't really want to cut anything from here. I guess if I had to, I'd cut Moonlight Dragon, or you could cut the Cipher package. But the big thing with the Cipher package is I've had games where it was legit, like, my board wasn't strong enough if I couldn't, usually on my opponent's turn, go the 2 Spirit Dragons into, like, I had it where I used the effects to negate a graveyard effect of both of these, and then went into Ultimate Spirit Dragon, negated an effect on the field, and then went into Cipher and negated another monster effect, where I got, like, literally 4 negates off of those. I think it's just a really powerful line. I honestly think Crimson Dragon should probably be banned. That's neither here nor there. But that's just, like, just a bunch of really powerful cards. That I found have served me very well. But yeah, the idea here is you have a bunch of hand traps, so if you go second against a really strong combo deck, you're probably opening 2 or 3, which hopefully is enough to be able to like push through with the engine card you drew. I think this version of the deck is honestly a little low on engine. Like the 41st card I put in here was Ether Barrel, because I had like 2 Ether Barrel, 3 Lordly Load, and then I crafted the 3rd Ether Barrel, and I was like, what do I cut? I want to play 40. And I was like, I'll just play 41. I have bricks I don't want to draw. I found it to be good, pretty efficient. I enjoyed this a lot. Opponents would frequently max C, and I just wouldn't care. I'd be like, okay, a normal summoned guy, moving on. Go. If they have Ash and max C, that tends to be a problem. But if they just have max C, it's like whatever. I don't feel like I'm going to have too much to say. I don't know. The idea with the hand traps is it's a bunch of smaller cards that you'll draw together that'll have enough of an impact for you to win the game. Except Nibiru. I could see playing Droll. I just felt like Droll wasn't consistently good enough. I'd get Drolled, and then I'd be relieved that I'd be like, oh sweet, I can just combo. I can't get Charmeat or Maxseed, but Charmeats and Maxseeds, I would say, are pretty bad into this deck. Like, I would hate to play against this deck. I didn't like playing against the mirror match and, like, having a Maxseed, because it just feels, like, really awkward to use. Unless I'm like, okay, I can use it to make them encouraged to not get wishes for Eyes of Blue. But, yeah. Oh, and this version of the deck, by the way, there are a ton of hands where you just don't open, like, one of your bricks. I wouldn't say a ton, but a fair number, where you'll have True Light, and you won't have a brick to discard, and in that case, don't go for wishes. Just don't discard a good card. If you get Ash, it's gonna feel like garbage. It's gonna ruin your life. Just get Roar or get Majesty directly. Even if it makes wishes, like, dead follow-up, it's fine. That very rarely is relevant. For the extra deck, by the way, the cards I'd consider would be fitting an SP Lone Light in here. Very situational, but does come up sometimes. The cuttable cards, I guess, would be Moonlight Dragon, Baron, Cipher, and Crimson Dragon. I feel like those are the ones that most frequently, I guess, least frequently came up. And then, like I said, I'd probably put in a Spirit Dragon and an SP, and then you have 2 slots for whatever you want. Maybe another Ultimate Spirit. I don't know. I'm just not, like, sold that you need anything. Probably another Neo Ultimate and another Blue Eyes Tyrant. I'm just not super sold on the extra deck needing to change. But also, I'm not like, oh, it needs to be like this. Like, I feel like there are a bunch of slots in here that you kind of use. I keep the Cipher Crimson package keeps being insanely strong, and keeping a Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit is crazy. Okay, I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna shut up. Alright, later.